12 highly effective tips for introverts who struggle at professional networking events. Networking may be a scary prospect for most introverts, but it shouldn't be. With proper planning and some unconventional tricks, reserved individuals can meet new people, boost business connections, and focus less on what others think. The good thing about networking events is that everybody's there to meet new people, no matter their personality. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. I hope you are doing marvelous. I'm doing fantastic, and if you are doing as marvelous as I am, go grab a cup of coffee, tea, or and let's roll. I want to quickly give a shout out to some of our viewers and listeners before getting to the nitty-gritty of today's conversation. I want to acknowledge today Madison Cook in Bushnell, Georgia, Rory Shaw in Richland, Georgia, and Courtney Hart in the beautiful city of Anson, Georgia. Thank you so much for your support, and thank you all our millions of viewers and listeners who are, just following us all over the world. Really appreciate it. 12 highly effective tips for introverts who struggle at professional networking events. Number 1, plan ahead. Very important. Figure out what you want to talk about ahead of time. And you want to prepare as much as you can, right? So you want to choose things like the topics you feel comfortable discussing. You want to figure out the people that you will be talking to or you'll be seeking to connect with, right? You can find out if you have an event where they publish beforehand the list of attendees. You can pinpoint the people, their companies, or the companies you want to follow. This is very important. So proper planning will relieve you at the right moment of the stress or the awkwardness or the timidity, right? The idea here is just to be prepared. So plan ahead. Tip number 1. Tip number 2, listen carefully and deeply. Now, the thing here is that as an introvert, you already have great talent, if you will, at listening and evaluating business opportunities. So use your talent to your advantage in this case. Listen deeply and carefully, right? And the good thing here is that you can basically, if people are talking, you can come up with more intelligent answers, right? Another thing that is great with listening is that people speaking appreciate when people listen to them, right? And if you are a great listener, you are de facto a powerful leader, because it has been shown, research has shown, not long ago, I think it was a Harvard Business, there was an article in Harvard Business Review that showed that one of the top skills that powerful leaders have is listening. So listen deeply and carefully so you know who you want to contact later on, who you want to talk to, who you want to connect with. All right. Tip number 3, build relationships online first. Right? If you know that you struggle at professional networking events, you want to start the conversation way before the physical meeting. You want to start the conversation on social media, on LinkedIn, and other platforms, right? So you want to start talking with someone or people that you are interested in way before. This actually, it's very important because online interactions, it has been proven that it is much less stress producing than face-to-face meetings, especially for introverts, right? So if you are a reserved person, you want to tackle the anxiety of going to a networking event by establishing a LinkedIn connection way before and starting a conversation, right? The idea here is not to connect with the person, but starting a conversation so you know them. By the time you go to that event, you know them. So if you know someone beforehand, the whole process becomes less intimidating, right? So, and then you can actually, by knowing 1 or 2 people, those 2 folks or 3 folks for that matter can introduce you to other folks, right? So instead of having to go by yourself and start introducing yourself, right? Go through other people that you already know. All right? I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We are talking about 12 highly effective tips for introverts who struggle at professional networking events. I want to quickly acknowledge just some introverts in New Hampshire, but who happen to be part of our beautiful listeners and viewers and fans, so we want to acknowledge them. Abby Green in Walpole, New Hampshire, Leon Andrews in Enfield, New Hampshire, and Isla Grant in Sunfield, New Hampshire. Thank you so much, Isla, Leon, and Abby. We appreciate it. Tip number four, find a networking wing person. Right now, the thing here is that a wing person is just what it sounds like, what the word sounds like. You want to go with someone, so you have a duo as opposed to going solo, right? So you have a wing person who might be as an introvert as you or more extrovert. Doesn't matter. The idea here is to have someone you already know beforehand, somebody who is knowledgeable about your industry, or somebody who is knowledgeable about the industry, an industry you're not familiar with, right? Or somebody who knows people. If you remember earlier, I said you need to build relationships online first. If you don't have that, just grab someone that you already know in real life and have that person accompany you to the networking event. And that's what I call a wing person, a networking wing person. Having that will make your life a lot easier. Believe me, a lot easier. Tip number 5, volunteer more often. Now, volunteering is great for your karma, right? But it's also great for your networking abilities, your networking possibilities, especially if you are a reserved person, right? It allows you to get to know people inside or outside your industry. It allows you to get involved in philanthropic events, right? And by volunteering, you can find ways to get people to know you, to get more people to know you, right? So the thing here is that volunteering is some kind of networking, if you want to call it that way, right? It may not be a professional network. Like when you volunteer, you're not volunteering necessarily to network, but it's a form of networking, and it's pretty good. People have parlayed their philanthropic connections into jobs, right? You know someone in the community, or you serve on the board of advisors of a community organization, and you know people, and you can parlay those connections into other areas of life. So it's just a win-win scenario here. All right. Tip number 6, practice introductions outside your industry. What does this mean? This basically means that you are able to venture out of your industry and you practice introducing yourself at non-business events or events outside of your industry. Remember earlier I was talking about charity, right? So if you are at a charitable event, practice introducing yourself to people, right? If you sort of serve on a board, on a community board, on a community outreach board, for instance, practice talking to people. The thing here is that by doing it in a non-business setting, you are removing the pressure of feeling like you have to be on, right? You remove the anxiety of feeling like you are awkward, and you'll be much better prepared to make those business growth connections. So the idea here is to train, quote unquote, train your introductions in non-business settings and use that training, that practice, into a real professional setting, into a real professional networking setting. So this is basically how you do it. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition. We're still here continuing our conversations around the 12 highly effective tips for introverts who struggle at professional networking events. If you just joined us or you have been listening to us for a while, consider subscribing to our channel. We want you to smash the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you are aware anytime we drop a new show. And we do this every single day, once or twice, or even more if we are not lazy. Like this show, share the content and comment below. I want to quickly acknowledge the feedback and the support of some of our viewers and listeners in North Dakota. So we have Esme Watson in Cooperstown, North Dakota, Bobby Holland in Sells, North Dakota, and Maria Edwards in Lark, North Dakota. Tip number 7, ask a lot of questions, right? So if you can't talk, or if you're not comfortable talking, which is a personality trait found in most introverts, make sure you're asking questions. So you want to preempt the conversation by asking the question. Ask the questions first. So within the first minute of a conversation, ask a question, and ask a lot of questions. By asking questions, you're able to sort of direct the conversation without talking much, right? You're just asking questions. And if you have a dynamic group, if you have a great speaker, if you have a vibrant speaker, he or she can end up speaking for 10 minutes while you're only speaking for 1 minute, right? So the idea here is to be very, very engaged from the get-go. You have to ask the questions in the very first minute, all right? And of course, once you do this, just listen, right? Because introverts are natural listeners. And you can basically just step back and let the speaker explain, talk, and you just listen and nod from time to time, right? Tip number 8, have a clear purpose for attending the event. And this is a biggie. If you understand the why you're going to a specific event, not only will you be motivated, you will also be comfortable. So get the why right, get the purpose right. This could be, are you looking for a new job? Are you supporting a colleague? Are you doing something for your business? Are you going there because your favorite role model is there, or your favorite social media celebrity is there, the industry luminary is there? Or is it a combination of all of these things? If you get the reason right, the motive right, you will feel less awkward during the session. You will feel more motivated, as I said earlier. So this is very important. Take 5 minutes, take 30 minutes, whatever it takes to get the purpose right. Have a clear purpose for attending the event. All right? Number 9, do some networking even before the event. Now, I'm not talking about just online here. I'm talking about offline. You can do it online if you want to, but you can also do it offline. How do you do that? Now, let's say you have a networking event in 2 months. But before that, you have other networking events, smaller ones, maybe 2 or 3 or 4, right? You can go to those events, those smaller events, 1 or 2, and meet people there. So you're able to do some networking before the main event. Again, the idea here is that, if you create a plan before the event, you can very easily navigate the whole session, and you can pinpoint the people you want to talk to. All right, you can find out who is going to be there, and you can try to connect with them through, an event, through one of the mini events that I spoke about. All right. Another thing that is very important to do, that is very easy for introverts, is to find people with common interests, or people with whom you have mutual connection. If you're able to find that common denominator, then things become easier, right? Let's say you are networking, you work at an investment bank and you want to network, but you basically find that some people at the event love, they share your love of baseball, or they share your passion for traveling, right? Or you went to the same university, the same school, they worked at the previous company you worked for. So those are common denominators you can use to navigate the networking session a lot easier. So by doing some networking even before the event, you are better prepared. All right? I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We're still here talking about professional networking for reserved people. And I want to quickly, again, recognize some of our viewers and listeners, particularly Maya Gardner in Fort Oaks, North Carolina, Louis Marsh in Wenchesee, North Carolina, and Alex Webb in Franklinville, North Carolina. Thank you so much for sticking around. We really appreciate it. Tip number 10, take periodic breaks. So you want to give yourself cutoff times during a networking event. You know, when you go to an event and you can say, you know, after 45 minutes, I'm going to just take some time out, regroup, and come back. And set a specific time during the event where you can leave. It's very important because and this is part of the planning I was speaking of earlier. If you're able to give yourself periodic breaks, your brain is prepared to endure, quote unquote, endure the whole networking session, right? Say you have a 3-hour networking session and you know you don't want to feel awkward, you want to feel comfortable during the event. By giving yourself a pause every 45 minutes, you are in control of the whole situation. There will be 4 breaks that you can take, and that allows you to be comfortable. All right. Tip number 11, look for speaking opportunities. Now, I know this might sound a little counterintuitive because as a reserved person, you might not be inclined to speak. However, if you look for speaking opportunities, that forces you to push your whole mindset out of your comfort zone. And this will help you develop. This will help you experience things better. This will open the door for others to engage with you after you've shared an experience together, right? So look for opportunities to speak at events. Now, I'm not talking about having a speech of 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 1 hour. This could be 5 minutes. This could be 2 minutes. You can introduce someone as opposed to being, rather than being a keynote speaker, you can be an MC. You can be part of the organizational staff, right? You can be an usher. So those are little speaking opportunities that may help you break the barrier, that may help you become more comfortable networking. All right? Tip number 12, that's the last tip here. Go ahead and introduce yourself to someone. Yes, I said it. This is very important. Go ahead, don't think. Just walk to someone and introduce yourself. It could be 1 or 2 people. You can go into a group and just introduce yourself. You don't have to talk about anything. Just introduce yourself. You want to allow the conversation to happen organically. You want to have the conversation. You want to have a conversation start naturally, right? So when you introduce yourself, what's going to happen is that people in return will introduce themselves, right? So if you ask questions about what they do or their experience, this will kick off the conversation organically, right? You can also ask questions that are fun to answer, right? Instead of asking a very formal question, you can ask questions that are fun to answer, all right? And you can ask them what they do, that kind of stuff. From experience, I've seen that you can always use the weather, you can use sports, you can use movies, right, to kick off a great conversation. We actually we've dedicated an entire show on the subject of how to speak publicly, how to speak properly in public, how to kick off a great conversation, how to hook your audience from the get-go when you're presenting. You might want to double check, you might want to check out that show. You'll learn a lot. All right, I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We are going to wrap up today's conversation, and I want to say please consider subscribing to our channel, like this content, share, and comment below. Give us your experience when it comes to networking, particularly networking for introverts. I want to quickly give a shout out to Lucy Palmer in Belmont, Oklahoma, Aiden Cunningham in Pryor, Oklahoma, and Abigail Miller in Oil City, Oklahoma. So Abigail, Aiden, and Lucy, all the way from Oklahoma. Thank you so much for your support and contribution. We really appreciate it. So I want to quickly recap today's conversation. And we were talking about 12 highly effective tips for introverts who struggle at professional networking events. Here are the 12. Plan ahead. Listen deeply. Build relationships online first. Find a networking winged person. Volunteer more often. Practice introductions outside your industry. Ask a lot of questions. Have a clear purpose for attending the event. Do some networking even before the event. Take periodic breaks. Look for speaking opportunities. Go ahead and introduce yourself to someone. This is it, folks. So today's call to action, just to completely end this show. Here are a few extra tips you want to pay attention to. At a professional networking event, always put away your phone. Right? You don't want any distraction. You want to focus on the event and make lifelong and substantial connections. As for introductions, manage your inner critic. The monkey brain that tells you can't do it. Manage it and tame that monkey brain. Set reasonable expectations, folks. All right? This is it. Have a great time, and I'll see you next time. Be marvelous.